Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be part of this coffee table book. Alok, Ranjan, Tiwari asked me some questions, and based on that, I prepared this. The good news. There are problems in the world. Each year, more are unfurled. Climate change has been there. The pandemic brought its share. Inequality is very dire and may be getting even higher. And since the Russia-Ukraine war, the world has had to then endure an unexpected commodity boom. All these dangers constantly loom. Some countries succumbed to all this flack, but we are on a better track. And as commodity prices decline, our inflation numbers should be fine. We already know we will survive. And now there's hope that we will thrive. Our economy is growing fast, and there are signs that this will last. It looks like we will thrive now that India is at 75. But then Alok asked me about a cautionary note. Though there are many reasons to cheer, today's India, I sometimes fear not everything is on track. Sometimes we are moving back. The relationship between center and state can't always be said to be great. There's a natural tension, as they say, and politics could come in the way. Freebies have spread far and wide. The economy can't take them in its stride. Decisive action has been sought, even by the Supreme Court. But let's hope we keep this in sight and always do what is right. Spend on public health and education, the ideal welfare for the nation. One hopeful sign is GST. It's administered permanently. The council meets and then decides, and everyone else then abides. If by such means center and state don't compete but collaborate, development will then proceed and our nation will succeed. Good center-state collaboration is important for our nation, and structures that incentivize cooperation would be wise. I hope we respond to a higher call and not break in fragments divided by a wall. I sincerely hope that we will be the true spirit of democracy, where institutions will be strong. Now building them takes very long, but often we can find a way to subvert or break them in a day. I'd like to see much more free speech, where the state's long arm doesn't reach and crushes voices that oppose, but active debate thrives and grows, where ideas win because they're right and not because of mere might, where everyone has equal rights and personal dreams are within our sights, where all our skills can be used and nobody is ever abused, where there's timely rule of law and delayed cases are a flaw, and everyone understands we can't take the law in our own hands, where all have their opportunity and therefore there's no penury, where our thoughts are not sectarian but very firmly humanitarian, where hateful thoughts are gone and done and we are at peace with everyone. China and India, the two most populous nations, have been through many gyrations. Their economic emancipations were prompted by liberalizations. First off the block was Deng Xiaoping. 13 years later, Manmohan Singh. So China had a great head start. Its control system played a part. The Communist Party is a big group. They are a good feedback loop. It was always a very broad tent, and largely the people were content. The economic growth was steady and strong. This trend indeed lasted for long. The one-child policy was an aid. In the early years, it certainly paid, but the population will reach a peak. This makes their situation bleak. An aging population will not send a demographic dividend. I said that their tent was broad, But now their governance is flawed. Term limits were abrogated. Imperious rule was propagated. All boded well for Xi Jinping. But then he lost his Tianming. XI has been nicknamed 11. Has he lost the mandate of heaven? Though on the throne he may sit, without the mandate, is it legit? Lockdowns now drag on and on, while elsewhere they've long been gone. China's growth rate is now slow, while India is in the flow. Parekh is now on a high. Specialty chemicals soar and fly. While some may seem doom and gloom, for chemicals it is a boom. Earlier China's costs were low. Supplies from there did help us grow. Their pollution laws were very lax. Their governments now on their backs. Their costs then rose, some had to shift, and this could give us all a lift. Their competition is now less, and though we could be in a mess, if intermediates rise in price, our industry now finds it nice that we can backward integrate. And I can confidently state, with just a little R&D, there is much light that we can see. Sometimes a slightly higher cost, but nothing much is really lost, because reliability is what we gain from a more secure internal chain. Now, Atmanirbhar is the call, so never again will we stall just because supplies are late. Backward integration's great. Now, Chinese lockdowns perpetuate. For businesses, this isn't great. For India, there's an opportunity. A chemical boom is what we see. We can't tell if it will last for long, but right now, nothing's going wrong. For all of you, there's opportunity in the chemical industry, and biotechnology is on the rise. Expanding this would be wise. If we spend more on R&D, there are many benefits we will see. The labor-intensive game's not for us. We've already missed the bus. But knowledge-intensive is our forte. Here's where we should make our sortie. Although we are way behind, in the present environment we can find a chance to steadily bridge the gap. Let's diligently run each lap. The race has not yet been won. You might say it's just begun. If we try hard, if we hang in, we have the wherewithal to win. Mother, national, or global tongue. It should never be either or. Our hearts and minds demand much more. The more we learn, the easier it gets. On many tongues, let's place our bets. For language learning, the perfect art is to have an early start. Each language opens a different door. It widens our minds, and that's for sure. Many routes will be unfurled to thrive in a global world. ESG. According to Steven Pinker, and supported by many a thinker, the world's becoming a better place, though at a slow but steady pace. And yet there are problems for sure, and climate change is at the fore. Inequality is also dire and maybe getting so much higher. If progress on all these is slow, the consequences are grave, we know. Their abilities and constraints are such that governments can't do much. NGOs have few means but ability, and businesses have means but don't see these issues as part of their core. For profit is how they would score. But businesses slowly realize that profit is a short-term prize. After all, what do businesses gain if they die out and don't sustain? But how much can they afford to spend to ensure that their existence doesn't end? The answer's not easy to find, but a thought still comes to my mind. If the efforts of all are combined, the synergies that we can find reduce costs and raises gain and obviates inevitable pain. There's a capitalistic strain that enthrones shareholder gain, and Milton Friedman could see that this simplistic philosophy could lead to great efficiency. But wherever there's externality, this capitalism, red in tooth and claw, can prove to be a dismal flaw. Correction can come from regulation. or even from self-remediation, and Adam Smith himself foresaw that business could address this flaw. It should be clearly understood one can do well by doing good. Doing it smartly, we do better. So why not be the trendsetter? In capitalism's early day, we see social responsibility in some degree. To dissipate the urban gloom, both Cadbury, Lord Leverhulme, then pioneered the company town. Some observers would surely frown at their extremely paternal attitude, but many might view it with gratitude. We should remember, in that age, it compensated their lowly wage. It's time to get the Tata Group now very much into the loop. Because it seemed morally right, the Tata Group then set its sight at such a very lofty height for what trade unions had to fight in Europe for several years was gifted by these worthy seers from the goodness of their heart. Undoubtedly, this played a part in holding their great reputation and then contributing to the nation. And doing good is very sound. What goes around does come around. Doing good isn't just a cost. The gain outweighs all that's lost. My grandfather probably saw these examples and found no flaw. He bought far-away marshy land. His critics just couldn't understand. They concluded he had gone quite mad. But today, we are glad, not sad. A township then slowly arose, and this is where our business grows. We provided every needed tool, housing, hospital, and school. My uncle, known as Sorabji, way back could clearly see the environment was under stress. Neglect, he knew, would be a mess. Our creekside land was reserved, the mangroves there well preserved, and from my office I gaze out there, a Mumbai view that's very rare, with greenery all the way until you sight New Bombay. And now and then, with friends I float on a gently moving boat with pink flamingos in full flight. To my mind, a splendid sight. In saving tigers, he played a role. The environment was a major goal. The Tata Trusts, as we all know, get a very constant flow of dividends from shares they own. It may not be quite as well known. Our trusts also have a share, the proportion smaller, but it's there. And here I think we all ought to pay careful heed to Michael Porter. With shared values, there's no cost. For doing good, as nothing's lost. All it takes is a thinking brain to remove a societal pain and combine it with a business gain to create a sustainable chain of endless mutual benefit. This concept is a tremendous hit. We thought that we should also try and see if we could apply this philosophy to our group. Our employees also joined the loop. In the year 2010, studies were commissioned, and then, with the help of DASRA and FSG, our new program, one could see, we aptly named it Good and Green, and what a journey it has been. And how do we define our role? What could be a proper goal? Now the UN has a lengthy list, so in recounting, some would be missed. So I will focus on just three that I think would be the key for all the others to fall in place and enable us to win the race. Good health through perfect sanitation, environment, and education. All of these can be seen in our program, Good and Green. It is no longer climate change within a tolerable range. A crisis is what it's about, with fires, floods, as well as drought. Every week a constant blast, far worse than seen in the past. If we must, we will adapt. Prevention, though, would be more apt. There is a cost to adaptation. It's rising fast in every nation, as well as for the world at large. This will be a heavy charge. In fact, we should all conclude prevention would be far more shrewd. It actually would cost much less and avoid a lot of stress. All industry could play a role in the carbon neutral goal. GHG emissions should be reduced. More green energy should be produced. And so without partiality, our goal for all is neutrality. We see the benefits of green, but something else should be seen: the different outcomes that we see because of inequality. The vision that we should now share is a brave new world, both green and fair. The environment isn't all. On society, let's take a call. Throughout the chain, let's keep in sight every person's human right. It's business as usual, not bravery, to end child labor and slavery. And in all businesses, we should see the broadest reach of diversity. Not only is it fair and right, it would give us the best insight. Since life is full of many hard knocks, we need to think out of the box. Diversity is the perfect aid when we are required to wade through the troubled waters or quagmires. Unusual thought is what inspires. Lack of health and education leads to the perpetuation of inequality through generations in almost all of our nations. Without good health, you never learn. If you don't learn, you cannot earn. For health as well as climate change, it certainly isn't strange that prevention's better than a cure. On public health we should spend. It is much cheaper in the end. With little cost and greatest ease, we could reduce lifestyle disease. At any rate, I'm quite sure we would spend less than for a cure. In order to achieve this goal, businesses could play a role through business models and CSR. Together, we can go quite far. And similarly, through education, we can serve ourselves and the nation. We often think that charity can address disparity, but tackling health and education are better means for alleviation. Through action and advocacy, we can help all humanity to create a world that's just and fair, and everyone is free to share nature's bounty and be fulfilled. And then I'm sure we'd all be thrilled. The demographic dividend. Demographers in the know claim our dependency ratio is indeed extremely low and will continue to stay so. Most are of a working age, few have reached the older stage, and as growth begins to slow, our babies form a lesser flow. Then adolescents who now grow will soon be workers, we all know. But the demographic dividend, alas, could very quickly end if new recruits can't pull their weight, either because we discriminate against women or the outcast as often we did in the past, or they lack in education, which is the bane of our nation. The government has surely failed, and often they have been assailed, but business also has some reach. Can they step in and fill the breach? That's not our job, most would say. What if I tell you it can pay? Take a risk and don't be scared. Hire those who aren't prepared. Train them well as they work. As they are grateful, they won't shirk. It doesn't take all that much, and the benefits are such, you won't regret what you do, so help yourself and the nation too. So what we need is education to claim the dividend for our nation. Conclusion. The times are tough, but we stand tall. We must beware lest we fall. Let us hope we have both social rights and economic growth. Let us bear all this in mind. There are solutions we can find if we take everyone on board and proceed with good accord. If we are smart as well as wise, surely India's bound to rise. Thank you.